welcome back to episode 141. And in this corner, weighing in at 850 pounds, Tall Boy Radio. No jokes about how much of that 850 pounds that I make up. Thank you very much. So we trailed it last week. We're going to do something a little bit different this week. Largely, it was for Gaz, who you will notice is absent, who has an opinion about which is better, which is best out of Usual Illusion 1 and 2. But first, let's introduce the host that has made it with the face of an angel and the love of a witch, Andy.
Howdy. I'm on a TBR Classic tonight. The old Vimto in a Guinness glass.
Yeah.
Probably one of the worst glasses I've got.
Yeah, that's it, dude. And there's no gin and tonic in that, no?
No, I had that earlier.
Good man. Right then. He's the son of a gun and the gun of a son. Dude, what are you drinking tonight? Do you want to say hello?
Yeah, hiya. I'm not really drinking beer particularly at the minute, so I'm drinking a bit of cider tonight. And I brought some Parma Violet cider, and I've got some pink grapefruit cider as well to have afterwards. So
yeah, fair play. And finally, he's talking to himself and nobody's home. Dave?
Good evening. I've got a plum porter, but it's not the Titanic, and it's not what was the other one from the other supermarket? The
Aldi.
Aldi, it wasn't that. It's a Harper's plum porter, and it's actually not very plum at all. So it's not a patch on Titanic. It's quite nice actually. It's quite stouty, but it's not plummy.
Is that definitely not Aldi's version? It looks like it.
They sell Harper's.
They may do, yes.
And there we go then. Maybe it is.
Yeah, I think it is. Now, you challenged me to taste test it, didn't you? And I did rather well, as you'd expect to do. So, do you think you could comfortably tell the difference?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I think so too. And finally, before we get on to my beers, I'll go my Guns N' Roses lyric. I can use my illusion, let it lead me where it may. I live and learn, and then sometimes it's best to walk away. But me, I'm just here hanging on with my only place to stay, at least for now anyway. I've worked too hard for my illusions, just throw them all away. And the beers I am drinking tonight have been kindly donated again, actually. So last week it was my lad who worked for me, Jacob. This week's Dave. Went on his Ollie Bobs to, was it France?
France, yeah.
Yeah, so you brought back a couple of beers. So the one I am opening up with, my amuse-bouche, is the Ardwin Hops Cure, 8% of loveliness. And then the main course is it's Trips, Andy. You'll like this one, and I think you'll like the label as well. Tête de Mort, which is my rough understanding of French, means deadhead. And then finally, I'm finishing off with a happy ending, Ardwin Cerise, which is a cherry version of the beer I'm drinking now. That's 4.5%, but I do enjoy a cherry beer, so I'm quite excited about that one. So last week then, we finished off by telling you what we were going to talk about this week. It's an argument that's raged since September 1991. I'm just going to read out, Gaz highlighted it last week, didn't he, when he was talking about music, just how bad music is these days, that he felt that James Blunt was the best thing he'd seen in a long while, didn't he? Do you remember, Andy?
Yeah, it's a questionable opinion.
It's a very, very questionable opinion. But I'm going to read out some albums now that were released. Okay, so Nirvana's Nevermind, Soundgarden's Bad Motor Finger, Red Hot Chili Peppers' Blood Sugar Sex Magic, Guns N' Roses did Usual Illusion 1 or 2, Pearl Jam's 10, and Metallica's Black Album were all released in the space of 44 days in 1991. That's the golden age of music right there, isn't it, in terms of rock music?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolute gems. That's right. That's right up your alley, isn't it, Andy?
Yeah, I've listened to one or two of them before, yeah. Music's not really progressed since then, I don't think.
I don't think it has. And that's probably why we're devoting an hour of our time to discuss two albums that were released 30 years ago. So, the reason why we say this, because we've mentioned a couple of times, Usual Illusion 1, I've got to mention on this podcast once or twice, and every time it has, Gaz has chirped up and said, which one do you prefer, 1 or 2? And he prefers 2. but on both the occasions he asked somebody, they preferred Use Your Illusion 1. So just out of interest, before we get into it, see if we're going to have a balance of an opinion or a hung jury, or whether we can actually will have a decision come the end of this. Tell us a little bit about your favourite album, Andy, and which one you prefer out of the two. I can see you fast Googling it now to see what track's on what.
Yeah, because I can't remember. But no, the 2 I think it is. Because it's got that You Can't Be Mine on it, and it's a classic. Said I can't recall half the songs on them. Like Civil War, I know, and You Could Be Mine. On the first one though, it's like November Rain stands out. Live and Let Die. But no, it's got to be the second one for me.
Interesting, Dave.
I actually went to watch them on the Use Your Illusion tour back in '93.
Indeed.
I saw them playing the songs at Milton Keynes Bowl. But I couldn't remember them, so I had to go and listen to the albums over the last few days. I do listen to them quite a lot, but not the whole album. So listen to the whole albums again, and I think number 1 is definitely the best. It's a much more coherent album. Number 2 just looks like a load of songs shoved on there.
Interesting.
That's exactly the opposite to what I'd say.
Yeah, it's interesting.
I preferred when I was younger, when it came out, I much preferred number 1, and it felt like 1 was more of a natural progression from Appetite for Destruction. It felt more in the same vein. 2 felt a bit more polished, but 1, I don't know, I thought it was a bit mismatchy with a couple of songs, like things like November Rain. They didn't feel like they belonged on there. That could have been put over onto 2. I thought even the slower, kind of more ballady ones, like You Ain't First or whatever, on there, it still had that edge to it, which they didn't seem to have as much on the second. They're a bit more polished and a bit more orchestrated, I suppose, on the second one. So I prefer number 2 now. Now I've mellowed with age a bit, I prefer number 2.
That's interesting. Now, I'll tell you where I sit then, right off the offing. For me, I think the best songs, you pick them out, probably some of my favourites sit on Use Your Illusion 2. However, as a better album, I think Use Your Illusion 1 flows. I think it's got a flow. And because I totally agree with what you're saying, when you think about Appetite, it was, it wasn't polished in any way at all. No. Use Your Illusion 1, actually, I think is a little bit more polished than Appetite.
Yeah.
But it flows from 1 through to 15, with one exception, I'll give you. November Rain.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. So in terms of popularity, November Rain, we've mentioned it there. That sits, right, if you look on Spotify, that sits around about number 2 in terms of Guns N' Roses' most popular songs, okay? Do you know what the Guns N' Roses' most popular song is on Spotify?
Oh.
What's the Cry? What's that one?
Don't Cry.
Yeah.
No.
I thought, it's got to be something from Appetite, has it?
It is off Appetite, yeah, so it's from Appetite.
Go on.
Sweet Child of Mine.
Yeah, I suppose it makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
Sweet Child of Mine has 1.3 billion plays on Spotify, and also 1.5 billion views on YouTube. Now, that's massive. But when you talk about November Rain, okay, here's a fact about November Rain. November Rain is the first song that was released prior to YouTube existing to hit over 1 billion views on YouTube. The first one. No. So, I know, Dave, you're a big fan of Queen. Does that surprise you that it hit that mark before Bohemian Rhapsody?
Yeah, it does, actually, because if you'd have asked which one, I'd have gone for Bohemian Rhapsody.
There you go. Yeah. Don't get me wrong, it's had over 1 billion views since, but November Rain was the first, and actually is a pinch away from hitting 2 billion views on YouTube. That's pretty phenomenal, isn't it? That's some pretty serious numbers.
If all our listeners get on there now, we'll probably hit that 2 billion, won't we?
Oh, 3 billion, I imagine, with all of our listeners. We're more popular than Man United.
That November Rain was ready to go on Appetite.
It's
He'd written that, but it took him that long still faffing around with it as he likes to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was ready for Appetite. It was originally going to be on there.
Tracy Guns has confirmed that story as well. It isn't just a thing. He said that he remembers him playing around with it then, and it just wasn't ready. It wasn't a particularly good song when he first came up with it. Do you know how long the original version was? The one that they were happy with?
18 minutes or something.
Longer.
24 minutes.
Longer.
Oh god. Needs to say that.
Maybe 32.
Oh, too long. 27 minutes. Yeah, 27 minutes was the original length. You know, it was like a Lord of the Rings length kind of song. That's ridiculous, isn't it? 20. Someone must have thought. Someone must have said to him, "Come on, do you know, 27 minutes, probably a little bit too long."
Then you get the feeling that nobody actually ever says anything.
Yeah.
Or if he does, he certainly never listens.
He certainly
to it,
doesn't listen, no.
So, no.
But at 8 minutes, 57 seconds long, it is the longest song to ever appear in America's Top 100.
Yeah.
So no song that length or longer has ever appeared in America's Top 100.
How
So,
long's Bohemian Rhapsody?
too long.
They're like 8 or 9 minutes.
I thought it was 9 minutes something.
I don't think so. Well, maybe it is. But what about the single version of it though? I bet the single version is shorter than 9 minutes.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, it is.
I'll Google while you carry on.
That's it. So that's November Rain. The other one there that you mentioned, it's got like November Rain has got 683 million downloads on Spotify, and the second most popular one third rather actually after Sweet Child of Mine, Knocking on Heaven's Door, which is on Use Your Illusion 2, is their third most downloaded song, which has got 497 million. So there's some pretty serious numbers there. And for two albums as well, this is the other fact about their charts. Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 obviously were 1 and 2 in the charts for quite a while in the UK and the US, and Guns N' Roses are the only band to ever have achieved that fate. I mean, that shouldn't be too surprising because most people don't do two albums at the same time. But take yourself back to 1991. Think a little bit about yourself, and if you want to share any stories from them, feel free to do so. But much like Dave, I went to see Guns N' Roses a different day actually, because they did it over 2 days in the Milton Keynes Bowl on the 30th of May 1993, when I was just a young boy. Yeah. So what do you remember? Do you not remember anything about that?
No, not cool. Not a thing. I've still got the ticket and I got the T-shirt I bought, never opened. But yeah, it's I can't remember it. I can't remember much generally.
Useful, and that's why we get him on the podcast for that kind of insight. Well, I'm sort of trying to think back. So last week we talked about some of our favourite gigs, some of those special moments. Now, that wasn't one that I remember. It was a decent gig, and who were the bands that backed up? Blind Melon, Soul Asylum, and The Cult. So it was a decent undercard as well. But I do remember Guns N' Roses being ridiculously late on stage, like having to wait around for about 2 hours in the rain, and then Axl came out and said, "What the fuck have all you fuckers done to the fucking weather?" And you think, dude, you sat standing in it for 2 hours while you're sat backstage drinking.
Well, I saw Axl when I saw them in Manchester, and oh god, that would have been 2001, 2002, something like that probably. And it was Fat Axl with the braids, when he had his hair in braids and his fat. I was quite pleased I saw him like that. Yeah. But again, 2-3 hours late, kind of thing coming on, and yeah, annoying.
I think it's one of those things that he's one of those people who will just do what he wants to do, and I think you sort of said that with November Rain. You can tell him it's too long, but he'll do it if he wanted to. But going back to Appetite, yeah. So that and Don't Cry were both originally written with the idea of putting them onto Appetite. And like you say, I don't think November Rain particularly fits on Use Your Illusion 1. But I think we can agree neither of those would fit on Appetite.
No, not at all.
So go on then. Tell us a little bit about. Let's face it, they were the biggest band in the world, weren't they?
Were they?
Well, at that time, in 1990s, when people were clamouring for after Appetite, and then GNR Lies sat somewhere in the middle of that. Not a great album by any stretch of the imagination. Actually, very mediocre. I think most people presume that actually comes before Appetite when you listen to it, because half of it's live and half of it's acoustic. And then people wanted something new, and it took till, was it 87? July 21st, actually, it was released. It was my birthday, yeah, interestingly enough. Appetite. And then, so September the 17th of 1991, they released it. But back then, Guns N' Roses, there was no one bigger than them, and they literally could do what they wanted. Here's a question for you then. Which one Which one of Guns N' Roses is born in Stoke-on-Trent?
No. No.
And there is one of them, is there, from the original lineup?
Original lineup.
I'm guessing it's not Axel.
It's not Axel.
Right, Duff. Is that his name, Duff?
No, he was from Seattle. So why do you say none, dude?
Because he was born somewhere down south and he moved to Stoke when he was 2. Lived in Stoke for a couple of years, I think, and then went across to LA.
This is true. So
Slash, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. Slash. So Saul Hudson.
Yeah.
It was allegedly born in Stoke-on-Trent, but when you look into it, he wasn't. He was born in London.
London, was it? Oh, it was somewhere down south.
Moved to Blurton when he was 2. And left Blurton. Why? Why would you?
Blurton to Los Angeles, isn't it?
I know, yeah. I don't suppose too many people have made that journey.
No.
Yeah, his mum was apparently one of the costume designers for David Bowie.
She also, I heard, again, I don't know if this is true, she did a bit of choreography, I think, for someone like Paula Abdul. She did choreography work with Paula Abdul and somebody else as well, apparently. So, and his dad was an artist or in the music industry as well, I think.
Yeah. And certainly, I think, not just in terms of people who have lived in Stoke-on-Trent, I don't think there's a better guitarist of this time than Slash.
No.
Dave, you'll put forward your case for Brian May?
I reckon Brian May's a better guitarist.
Yeah. But do you actually, though, with all seriousness?
I don't know. I mean, I think they're very different. I think Brian May, I think, is a bit smoother and a bit more not as rocky. Slashy. Although he does the ballads. A lot of it is just a bit thrashing the guitar, quite loud, quite a lot.
I don't think so much, dude. I think you're doing the man a bit of a disservice. I think he's a very talented guitarist. And
he is. But I was just in the comparison to Brian May. I think I think Brian May's got more range, more different stuff.
I'd have gone Slash with more range. Slash did like a small, Velvet Revolver, and they got a few good bangers in there. And I don't know, he's just got a good. Maybe it's because it's more modern sound, more modern tech, and all that. I don't know. But I prefer Slash.
The only other guitarists that are around nowadays, Andy, that you think are anywhere up at that level?
Not off the top of my head, no.
No.
Maybe James Blunt.
Maybe James Blunt and his gas mask. Well, so here's the thing. We know about Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, but are you familiar with the album Just Use Your Illusion? Did you know that existed?
No.
Yeah, it did. So
bootleg copy.
No. So I forget who was it that refused to stock it. Walmart refused to stock it. Said it was too explicit. So they did a album which was combined, a 12-track album which combined. So number 1, Live and Let Die. 2, Don't Cry. 3, You Ain't the First. 4, November Rain. 5, The Garden. 6, Dead Horse. 7, Civil War. 8, 14 Years. 9, Yesterdays. 10, Knocking on Heaven's Door. 11, Estranged. 12, Don't Cry. Alternative lyrics. I think they could have left that one off, to be honest with you. But in terms of that in itself, not a bad album, is it?
Have none of those songs got any swear words then?
I thought Dead Horse had the occasional bit of cussing in it, yeah, but
pretty much the best of the both albums, isn't it? Not far off.
No, not far off. I quite like Locomotive though as a track. I think it's one of my favourites on there. Go on. Here's a question then. Which song off Use Your Illusion 1 or 2 had a sports team named after it?
Off both albums?
Yeah, but what about it was only on one of their albums?
All right, okay.
I'll give you clues. Use Your Illusion 2.
I don't know. I've not got the track list in front of me.
Track 11.
Track 11, yeah.
I can't remember the song called Track 11.
I'll give you a clue, Dave. You played in it.
I played in it. In what? Football?
The football team. Yeah. Do you not remember Estranged FC?
No.
Yeah, he did.
You did. You did.
Right?
Soundbite 6-a-side league. Was it 5-a-side? 5-a-side league, sorry.
We were called the Misterons.
No, it was after the Misterons.
No, the Misterons changed to Estranged. Because
Is that not where I left, though?
No, I don't think so, dude.
I stopped running the team.
Yeah, you stopped running the team. I think you played for a little bit, though, on.
Maybe.
Steve Finney and Beth White and whatever joined as well, and
Magic Smeds.
Magic Smeds.
Jeff Dick.
Yeah.
I mean, I take your word for it. I mean, what do I know?
Well, nothing. Your memory sucks, dude. We can tell you played for a team called Don't Cry. You'd probably sit and have a think about it.
Yeah.
I'll edit that out. So if we examine those two albums then, and starting off then, Use Your Illusion 1, Dave. You've listened to it recently, obviously. Tell us a little bit about it. You listened to it over the weekend.
I listened to it on the drive home from work today, but it doesn't mean I can tell you anything about it.
You just told us that you thought it has a better flow to it than Use Your Illusion 2.
That was the thing. So I listened to Use Your Illusion 2. I listened to both of them about 3 times over the last, since you told me we were going to talk about it. And I found that Use Your Illusion 2 was just a bit jarring. Like every song didn't fit or flow in any way from the previous one, whereas Use Your Illusion 1 tends to alternate a bit between 2 styles, but they kind of go together. And it has a run of 4 or 5 of pretty heavy ones, then it mixes it up again at the end. And I think as a whole album, I just think it works. With using Use Your Illusion 2, I just found every song a bit jarring. I really don't like that one, Get in the Ring. I just think it's a bit vulgar and a bit shouty and a bit sweary.
And do you know what? I know what you mean. Back in the day, I used to think, well, yeah, it's just a raw emotion put into a song when the frustration with the media. But now when I listen to it back, I feel the same as yourself. It just feels entirely gratuitous. There's no need for a lot of the stuff that's said in that. And the language, like I say, it's a little bit crass. And don't get me wrong, bad language doesn't really bother me too much. And some of the language on some of the other tracks is a bit fruity as well, but it doesn't really bother me too much. What are your thoughts on Get in the Ring, dude?
It's all right. I mean, I think the very fact that he named the people that he was pissed off with, I think shows that it was kind of a bit, as you said, like raw emotion or whatever, and he was displaying his anger. Them. It wasn't just random, swearing and just shouting out at no names. He said who the issues were and said why. It was all right. I didn't think it was a great song though. I thought it was quite cool. I think when it kicks in after he's done that and it kicks back in and Slash's little riff there as it goes back in's meant. But yeah, musically it's all right, but it's not. It's certainly not the best.
If it's on a live album, like a live recorded album, or just live at gigs, I think that's fine. But to put on a studio album, I don't think I ever particularly liked it. And listening back to it now, 30 years later, I definitely didn't. To the point, actually, I just fast forwarded it. I didn't listen to the rest of it.
There's a couple of them I thought off the albums though that, because I haven't listened to it in ages. I've not listened to Guns N' Roses. I caught the odd song and what have you, but I've not gone out of my way to listen to anything by them in ages. And then when I listened to it, I thought there's a few of the songs that I thought, I don't know if they just haven't aged well, but they certainly didn't have the same kind of impact at all on me at all. There's quite a few that I listened to and thought, yeah, it's all right. I used to really like that song, but it's all right. And then when you get to My World or whatever, I mean, that was dreadful. That was a shocking song that should never have made the album. It was just a noise. But yeah, there's a few of them that I thought just haven't aged that well. So
I thought the same, to be honest, John, when I was going through on Use Your Illusion 1, just going through that 5 or 6 songs together that were a bit samey and a bit heavy. They did flow. They were following one another in that sense, but I don't think I've ever particularly liked music where you can't understand the words that are being sung, and it just gets a bit shouty a little bit. And like you say, maybe it's different 30 years ago. Maybe I knew the lyrics then, but it's unlikely because I can't remember things. So I agree with you. They just seem a bit samey.
Yeah,
and that's what you said. I agree with you.
Well, interesting enough, just going back to Get in the Ring, like you say, it's the sort of thing, like you say, that would work live. But if you listen to it, actually, they put an audience noise over it to give it that sort of live feel, because it had to sound like it was a live album. It was live recorded, but it wasn't. It was recorded in a studio. And of the 3, who are the people who mentioned? Mick Walker, Bob Guccione Jr. at Spin, who's pissed off because his dad gets more pussy than him, and Andy Setcher at Hit Parade. Yeah, so I don't know which one it was, but one of them actually challenged him to take him up in the offer and actually said, I will get in the ring with you.
Really?
Yeah.
That wouldn't. It probably wouldn't bode very well for Axl anyway. No, I mean, he's only He's 5 foot of fag end, isn't he? Or something. He's only a little guy, wasn't he? Really? I mean, he was only a small guy,
But he was frisky.
He was frisky, but again, he didn't have a great deal of weight behind him either. I don't think it would have probably gone that well for him either.
No,
not really.
Well, when you saw him, John.
Sorry. Oh no, when I saw him, yeah. If he could transfer that weight when I saw him, then he'd be taking on the Gypsy King. So.
Well, he'd have a go. He'd have a go, bless him. But he was famous for getting upset at people and like leaping into the crowd. Do you remember that when he leapt into the crowd, try and grab and then thank the security slammed his microphone down and stormed off stage in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, and this is one of the things that they like to do that I never realised, that inside of their sleeve notes, they like to leave little messages and stuff like that. So on the inside of Appetite, you can find the lyrics with the bitch slap rapping in your cocaine tongue.
Yeah.
Which is from You Could Be Mine, which then later appeared on Use Your Illusion 2, and you just mentioned. On the inside of Use Your Illusion, I can't say it either, Dave. You will find the words "fuck you, St. Louis."
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Isn't that where there was a riot?
Yeah, that's where they started a riot. Yeah. Yeah, by storming off stage early.
It's not the first one that they started, was it? I remember he fell out with Sebastian Bach from Skid Row as well, and I think they'd arranged to have some fight somewhere. Neither of them turned up. Loads of fans did, and they kicked off instead. So it's not the first trouble they've been involved in.
Just the sort of thing you find James Blunt doing on every weekend, that is.
Yeah, James Blunt meeting Phil Collins, two of Gaz's favourites.
I'll let that cough out as well. So like I say, going back to Use Your Illusion 1 then, I'm going to give you some facts and stuff as well. Because obviously I've done a bit of research into this. So it starts off right next door to hell. It starts how Use Your Illusion 1 starts. And I just think, as soon as the album starts off, you know, like great bass line by Duff McKagan. And you just know you're in for a treat, that this is something that is going to follow on nicely from Appetite. But do you know what the song Right Next Door to Hell is actually written about?
Heaven.
Pardon?
Heaven.
I like the juxtaposition, Dave, but no. Right, if you take it literally, as in right next door. It was his next door neighbour.
Oh,
yeah. So Axel had beef with his next door neighbour, and that is what that song is written about. She made some accusations about him, accused him of assaulting her, and a number of other things. And this was his condominium, which I think featured actually in Use Your Illusion 2 in the Strange video. When he's inside that house. That is the house that was featured. But do you know what happened with that house? Do you know how he came to leave that house?
In an ambulance.
No, I think take a little bit too literally there. So now this is something I'd never heard. So MTV ran a competition to give his house away in a competition that was entitled Evict Axl Rose.
No way.
Yeah, and they gave the house away. It's like a multi-million-pound condominium in the Los Angeles, the greater Los Angeles area.
MTV did that. So do you remember Rebecca DeRuvo off MTV?
I do.
Yes, indeed. Well, she had some show, didn't she? It was on at 5 or 6 o'clock, and I can't remember. She didn't do it for some bloke took over. I don't think it was Ray Cokes.
I wish it was Ray Cokes.
But they had where people would vote in over the phone and about the most popular tracks. I remember that when she did that and she was on it, it must have been for about 3 months it went on for, and Live and Let Die then was constantly number one for months and months and months on MTV because of that through it.
Oh, yeah. Well, Live and Let Die then, obviously that is a cover. So both albums contain a cover version. Live and Let Die on Use Your Illusion 1. Knocking on Heaven's Door, probably the most famous of the two from what they did. Because obviously, which gig did they do that on? Was that the George Michael one?
I don't know.
There was a very famous live version of that. But those are the two, obviously. Are you familiar with the originals? Obviously, everybody's familiar with Wings' Live and Let Die from the Bond film, yeah? Mm-hmm. And were you familiar with Bob Dylan's Knocking on Heaven's Door?
Was I familiar with it when I first heard Guns N' Roses 30 years ago? No idea.
No. Are you now?
Yeah, probably. I'll listen to it. Right.
Yeah, well, that, again, it's both are taken from a soundtrack, interestingly enough, and like that is on the Billy the Kid and Pat Garrett soundtrack. No, Knocking on Heaven's Door is a terrible film. It's not a great soundtrack.
Is that the Sam Peckinpah one? Is it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, terrible film. There's no young ones. I can tell you that for nothing.
It's got cockfighting in it as well, hasn't it? A bit of actual cockfighting in that film. You see a cock get battered.
Yeah.
And,
have you ever seen a cock get battered, Andy?
Every night.
Oh dear. Yes. So anyway, that right next door to hell. So the cover art then. Let's talk about the cover of those two albums. Iconic in its way. I used to have a tie. Do you remember that tie-dye t-shirt? It was yellow and red on the front and blue on the back.
Yeah.
I say I wish I had it, but it's probably a little bit tight on me now. Are you familiar with a piece of art that is actually featured on it?
No. I've never known.
No, me neither. So it is Raphael's School of Athens, yeah, but it has been reimagined by an American artist by the name of, I think it was about American, it might have been Estonian actually. Now I think about it, Mark Kostabi, and it is literally the album cover as it appears. And do you know what the name of that piece of work is?
No.
Have a guess.
Use Your Illusion.
Correct.
No way.
Yeah. So that's it. See, you're learning all kinds of stuff about an album that you probably
Did they do both albums at the same time?
Fucking hell, Dave. We just said that.
He's forgotten. He doesn't remember, does he?
Yeah, I know, but literally, we've been going 31 minutes. I thought you'd remember about that far.
Well, I can't remember.
September the 17th, 19th. Remember I listed albums that were released for the span of 44 days, yeah?
Yeah.
And I did say Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 in that, didn't I?
Yeah, well, they could have been 44 days apart.
I still think we class that as the same time when you're looking back from 30 years.
So they did both albums intending to release two albums, and then
Yes, they did.
said some guy do a cover. They said we like that, but just do it in a different colour.
I don't know whether he did it in different colours or what. I don't even know if he did it for them. I don't think he did actually. But what you're saying is it's interesting though in terms of that these two albums were put together at the same time, and it does feel to me like Use Your Illusion 1. This is the way we're going to do it, and these songs all seem to flow. We'll put the others on Use Your Illusion 2, and then actually just play with the order that they go in. That's the way it feels to me. And then obviously the second one starts off probably my favourite track on the two albums, way up there, Civil War.
It's not a start-off track, that isn't, though, I don't think. Not to a rock album. If they'd have put You Could Be Mine on Use Your Illusion 2, if they'd have started with You Could Be Mine instead of Civil War, even just swapped them over or whatever, that's a better start, a more dramatic start to the album and kicking it off properly. Civil War is not a good way to start a rock album.
Feels like the last song, doesn't it?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I know what you're saying.
Ballady to start.
I know what you're saying, but actually, I don't think they did too many songs which actually had a message. And Civil War does, when he starts off with,
"There's definitely a message in Get in the Ring."
There is. But the
How many tracks is there in total?
Fucking hell, this is why we ask him back. This kind of research that he does. 15 on the first, 14 on the second. They're both an hour and 15 minutes long. But you knew that already, didn't you?
So do you think? I didn't know. So do you think that if they'd have written that? Do you think they wrote a bunch of songs and thought, there's too many for one album? But we've only got about 18 decent songs here, so we'll mix it up a bit. Do you reckon they could have just released one album with really good songs and the other one would have just been pretty trash? Not trash, but nowhere near, completely on a different league as the other one.
Well, I don't think so, because I think you got two albums worth. And interesting enough, Axl wanted to do two lots of double albums. So not just two albums, but two double albums. So he wanted more songs on there.
And where did the other songs come out? They come out in Spaghetti Instant or something?
No, Spaghetti Instant was all covers. So that was released 2 years later, and it's literally the worst follow-up to any album ever. It's appalling. I forget what the sales figures were, but they were shocking. They were absolutely shocking. So I'm keeping all of my limited edition orange vinyl upstairs. Nobody's going to want it like that, but I'm going to keep all. That's the reason I'm keeping it older, because no one will buy it off me. But yeah. But the thing is, so they did. But if you've got a little bit of money to burn, Dave, you seem like you may, the article you sent me about your company seems like it's doing very, very well. coming out and later in this year, there is going to be a limited edition box set of Use Your Illusion 1 and 2 together for the first time, done as a double album with some bonus tracks. 63 bonus tracks.
63?
63.
Previously unreleased?
Allegedly previously unreleased. I'll be honest with you. I had a quick look. I'd heard of every single one of them on there. They're just like live versions of them.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like they've done the vinyls with doing like CDs as well. I know, like 6 or something. I think the last 3 are live or something like that.
They are. They're all.
Could just stick the 2 CDs together with a bit of glue and be done with.
You could, yeah. Yeah, but if this is going to set you back. I think it was about $500 they were looking at charging for it. So it's a lot of money. You'd have to be a serious Guns N' Roses fan to pay that kind of money, wouldn't you?
That'd be a bit daft, wouldn't you?
What is that?
I mean, they'll all be on Spotify, won't they?
Well, they actually are going to all be on Spotify. Yeah, when it is released, it's going to be on Spotify as well. It'll be on all streaming platforms as well.
Yeah, that's a bit cheap.
I don't think paying $500 for songs that have been out for 30 years when you've already got the original CDs on your shelf.
Is it really limited edition then? Is it going to be? Is that why it's so expensive?
I would assume it's going to be very
limited. Be honest, you can't charge £500 if everyone comes about.
No,
limited could be limited to 6 million, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's true. It comes with as well, if you have a vinyl player, so it has a mat, a Use Your Illusion mat to play it on, which is a nice little collector's piece as well. But I'd like to think there's going to be a few other bits and bobs in there that's going to make it worthwhile purchasing. But I won't be spending my $500, whatever it is.
About £20 notes or something inside the case.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, something like that. Although with the current exchange rate, you never know where that's going down the pan. Don't get me started on the Conservative government because Dave's on. He'll disagree with me. So I've lost my train of thought now. Fucking hell, bastards. So Use Your Illusion 2, like we said, a little bit disjointed. What is supposed to be the standout track of there is Yesterday's. I've never liked that song.
No.
And that got a lot of airplay at the time. But no, going back to Civil War, I know that's where we were. Going back to Civil War, I know you say it isn't an opener, but for me, it's opening with a message, which I think is fairly relevant to today's society as well in terms of what's going on in America at the moment. Lots of people forecasting potential civil war the way that there is a disjointed society there at the moment. So I just think in terms of an opening track of an album, actually, I think it's phenomenal. I love that. I love that song.
I think it's a great song. I just don't think it's one that I'd put at the start of an album. There's a few I'd put before that. Shotgun Blues maybe or something before. Whatever, just not Civil War.
What are you guys thinking? What for you are the standout opening tracks? What should have been the opening tracks then for that second sort of bungled together album?
I don't know. You Could Be Mine is quite nice. Lead you into it. Middle of the road, not too ballady, not too rocky.
Massively popular as well, that one as well, wasn't it, as well? Because of Terminator 2 or what have you as well. So, yeah, I'd like.
Absolutely. I've got a feeling nobody's going to change their mind and move the ground on this one either. I also know, Gaz isn't here to give the casting vote, but I do know which way he would decide. So which one was the most commercially successful?
Second one. I'd say.
Sure, yeah.
I'll go Dave. This one. Just to be,
Just to be well, or the other way I put it, Dave, is just to be wrong. So Use Your Illusion 2 debuted at number 1 with 770,000 copies sold in the first week. Use Your Illusion 1 debuted at number 2 with 685,000 copies sold in that first week. And that is the way it has stayed for the last 31 years, that Use Your Illusion 2 has been the most popular of the 2 albums.
Is that the same on Spotify and other streaming services?
Well, it's interesting you say that, actually, because I tried to get download figures for those specific albums, and it's a bloody nightmare.
You've got to add up all the individual numbers.
It's only 15, Dave. I can cope with adding up 15 numbers. But
You said it's a nightmare.
Don't give... They don't give you them numbers. They're really hard to find. They'll give you the top 5 most popular songs. They'll give you those, but you try and get those download numbers. If you can get them, then get your calculator out.
Spotify, go to the album, and it shows you the track plays of them all, doesn't it?
Does it?
Yeah.
You're just talking off the top of your head now.
I am, because I know I'm right, and I'm now just loading Spotify to check.
Go on. Maybe it does it on there, but I did it on my phone and it doesn't.
Well, there's your problem, doing it on your phone.
Yeah, they're not there. Have you got them? And you can work it out for us then, Dave. Well, we'll give you a little bit of time on that one.
Yeah, I'll just sit down and add up all these numbers, no problem.
There's 15 numbers. We just discussed it's not complicated.
Some of them are quite big. Yeah, it's got all of them. So on here, it's got Plays, Civil War, 158 million. Knocking on Heaven's Door, 500 million. Don't Cry, 354 million. You Could Be Mine, 149 million. And so on.
Go on, then.
Not adding them all up.
Well, I tell you what, folks, we'll have that for you. We'll have that for you as an addendum, either to the podcast or as a social media post afterwards. But yeah, that's the way it stayed. So in terms of record sales, they have sold in total something like, I think it's 35 million albums. The two of them are sold between them, with the second one being the most popular, which makes it, I think it's 5 times platinum in terms of whatever that works out as now. But that is phenomenally popular, isn't it?
So that's a lot of sales.
Mm.
The fact, and because it's from that era when music was proper, people keep getting into Guns N' Roses. My kids, well, not Albert so much, but Alice listens to Guns N' Roses, and it won't be the whole album, but it'll be quite a lot of those songs that she'll play and she'll like and she'll play again. And that's just a mark of the difference between 30 years ago, or even 20, 25 years ago, and the sort of trying to do now.
Well, when they did come out, though, as you say, 30 years ago, and you spoke about some of the albums that came out at the same time. It was kind of like rock's era, that was as well, and heavy rock and metal and stuff were massive then. And the music isn't obviously as current and everything, but they just either it happened and they were one of the ones that were leading that and pushing that, or they came around at the absolutely perfect time because they mopped up, didn't they? They were, as you said, the biggest rock band in the world at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because even some of the people they had supporting them, I think even Metallica had gone and supported them, haven't they? So if you got
Aerosmith as well.
Yeah, Aerosmith supporting you, it's huge. That is, if you've got mega bands supporting you as well. Yeah. So we still go.
I've just done a very quick approximation, not the actual numbers, but just glancing down. And Use Your Illusion 2 probably does have considerably more plays over Use Your Illusion 1.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, because I think individually, I think number 2 probably has the best songs on it. I still think number 1 flows the better of the two. So when we saw him in 1993, we had Blind Melon, Soul Asylum, and The Cult backing him up, like I said. So 3 pretty big bands then. Blind Melon, love Blind Melon. I've got a Blind Melon quote tattooed on my back. Well, I would have done actually, but Rogsy missed one word out, didn't he? Bless him.
Did he?
Yeah. It says instead of saying "on the day I die, my soul will be released," it says "on the day I die, my soul be released."
Oh, right.
He's kind of old English, and he still works. I wasn't going to take him to task. He's a big lad.
I saw him about a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Doesn't look well.
You know.
I don't think how old he'll be now, though. He'll be ancient, he will.
Yeah,
saw him in Tesco's in Kidsgrove. He looked really rough.
Bless him. He was very obsessed with the craze, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He speaks highly of you, John.
Does he? Oh, I've got a bit of his artwork on me as well, but I had a tattoo done a few weeks ago, and when I was in there, somebody was basically saying it was having a cover-up done, and they said, "Oh, I had this done 20-odd years ago. I had it done at a place called Rogsy's in Hanley." And the guy in there, the guy in Allstate who does it, he said, "You wouldn't believe how many of his we've covered up."
Yeah, that's probably.
So,
all of mine are there with it. Probably will get covered up eventually, I think.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I on this side of my back, I've got Appetite for Destruction. Although nowadays my back's a little bit hairy. They all look like monkeys.
That's from the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, God bless it. But yeah, so back then, Blind Melon, huge. They did No Rain and that kind of stuff. Soul Asylum, massive. Did that one song, Runaway Train, which was by far and away their most popular. Do you remember that one? Runaway
Yeah,
Train? Yeah.
You're missing children, mate.
Yeah, do you know how many children were found of the 36 featured?
No,
21.
they should do one a year, then, shouldn't
Well, they have covered it since. I was watching
Really?
a documentary about it the other day. They covered it since. I don't know whether it was. Well, listen, I'd never heard of the bloody song, so I'm going to suggest it wasn't very popular. And then the Cult obviously were pretty big as well back then. But like you say, some of those other bands like Nirvana, Soundgarden, Red Hot Chili Peppers, obviously Guns N' Roses, Pearl Jam, and then like you say, Metallica, absolutely massive. And is it us getting old, or is music generally wank?
Yeah, latter. Oh, well, obviously both. Actually. But we're not disliking modern music because we're old. Because Alice particularly, she likes a lot of stuff. When we're in France, we're doing a lot of driving, and the playlist, she does play some stuff that we say, "Oh, just turn it off, Alice, please." But probably about 50% of what she puts on there is something that me or Catherine would like from 20, 30 years ago.
Fair play.
I don't think that's been from us. She's got that from her own or from her mates. Rather than us putting that onto her because we don't sit and play music around the house. So she's picked that up elsewhere, and I think that's, and from what she talks about her friends, I think that's probably the case more than just her.
My lad's 12, and the music he puts on is shocking, like really bad. He likes what's his face, Eminem. He likes him, and I bet you've never heard of it. Have you ever heard of Juice WRLD? He's dead now. Somebody shot him. But he was one, and there was but yeah, it's all this rap, all these American rappers he likes, and literally half the people that he likes are no longer with us, and left in their early 20s, let's say, and things like this. But the music he listens to is dreadful. Modern music's horrible. It's shocking. I blame Simon Cowell. He led us all down this when he got everybody into the X Factor and all this lot, and just people come in like manufactured nonsense that appeal to the kids, that look a certain way, that sound a certain way, especially after pushing a few buttons and things. and then it was guaranteed it stole Christmas #1s for years and years and years until people fought back, like with Rage Against the Machine and what have you and stuff. He massively changed, over here anyway, the face of our music. But for me, it went downhill when I hated all that Britpop nonsense and Oasis and Blur. I can't stand either of them. I can't see the talent. That's when music started going bad for me, when like the Oasis and Blurs and all that lot came into the scene, and it started going downhill then.
Back in the day, I liked Oasis, as you well know, did I? used to quite like Oasis, but now when I listen to it, I think, what did I ever see in this shit? The lyrics are entirely meaningless. It's just gibberish.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, it's got a nice sort of pattern to it, and it rhymes, but it means absolutely nothing. It's absolute bollocks. I don't know why I was so sucked into it. I don't mind Blur. I think there's a little bit of an intelligence to what David Albert has to say. Again, he makes sort of the pattern of the rhyme fit, rather too well sometimes, but I think he still had a story to tell in his music. So, a couple of the songs on here, Pretty Tied Up. What's that song about? The perils of rock and roll decadence. What's Pretty Tied Up about? Do you know what's the inspiration behind that song?
No idea. He kidnapped somebody.
Close. No, it's not. No, it's literally about what it sounds. It is about a dominatrix. Well, no. So Izzy Stradlin and one of his friends visited a dominatrix in the Los Angeles area.
His name's Stradlin, and he visited a dominatrix.
It is.
He was the one being straddled.
Although his real name wasn't Stradlin. We'll get to their real names in a minute. Actually, that'll be an interesting one. So yeah, Izzy Stradlin and his friend visited this dominatrix, and they had a guy taped to the wall with various instruments and stuff shoved up inside of him. Yeah, so that's where that song came from. But go on then, you mentioned it then. So their real names, Axl Rose, real name or not?
No, false name. I think it's Bill someone, isn't it?
Yeah.
I thought it was Bill someone, I don't know.
Guys?
No idea.
You don't know whether Axl Rose is his real name?
No, I don't know. I'm going that it's not, but I don't know his real name. I think it's Bill someone.
It's not his real name. I can't think of what his real name is. It's something quite bland, isn't it? I can't think of what it is.
Bill Bailey.
Hmm.
Bill But yeah. Bill Bailey is his real name, yeah. William Bailey, he was born, God bless him. Slash his real name, then going, Slash obviously isn't his real name. I've already said it earlier.
I mean, I can remember that, but I'll let them have a guess. I can remember that one when you said it earlier.
Just Streef or something? Did you say
SH was his initials, I think,
Yeah.
wasn't it? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Andy?
Surely.
Saul Hudson.
Oh, yeah, close.
Duff McKagan? Go on, Duff McKagan, that's his real name, Duff McKagan,
Can't be.
That's his real name, that is.
Well, is he half right? So his surname, Andy?
I don't think it's his. I don't know what his first name is.
Michael McKagan. So Izzy Stradlin, I've just told you it's not his real name. So his real name is Jeff Isbell. Matt saw him?
That sounds I'm sure, yeah, but hold on, yeah. Oh, unless he didn't change his name for Guns N' Roses if it was, because he was called whatever it was, not 21 Guns. Who did he play for beforehand? LA Guns or whatever.
That's correct.
So he was called Matt Sorum now, I'm sure. So I'd say that's his name.
That is his real name, correct. And Dizzy Reed.
Yeah, that's his real name.
Could be.
No, you're not far off, actually. Darren
Darren.
Reed, yeah. Don't got quite the same ring to it. Gilby Clark.
It could be, couldn't it? I mean, Gilby. Yeah, could be. Sounds about right.
Yeah, you wouldn't change to Gilby Clark, would you? It's not.
No. His real name is Gilbert Clark. Go on. And the original drummer, Steven Adler.
Stephen Adler.
It's got to be his real name. You wouldn't change your real name because yourself Stephen, would you? I'm joining a rock band and call myself Stephen.
No, it wasn't his real name. His real name is Michael Coletti, which actually I think is a bit of a.
It's a way better name.
It's a way better name than Stephen Adler.
Yeah.
Okay, well maybe you will change your name to Stephen.
Yeah. So what do you think about Axl, Slash, Duff, Izzy, Matt, and Dizzy Reed? It sounds a little bit better than Bill, Saul, Mike, Jeff, Matt, and Darren, doesn't it?
Yeah. Dazza.
Go on, Daz. But he's an actor now, Dizzy Reed is.
Is he?
Yeah, I don't know what he's in like. Yeah, God bless him. But he was always a little bit of a bit part. So that when we went to see him, Dave, in 1993, who did we see on rhythm guitar? Because Gilby was at the time, but Gilby was in a motorbike accident and broke his arm. We got to see Izzy Stradlin play with him, so that was pretty good. We had more or less the original lineup. Although I would argue Matt Sorum was actually an upgrade on Stephen Adler, bless him.
I mean, we had Izzy and Axl from the original lineup when I saw him. Izzy came back as a guest on the night I saw him, and it was only Axl that was from the original lineup at that point.
Was Buckethead playing when you watched him?
I don't think so. The one thing I can really remember from it is when it was like 2 hours of waiting. Or the guy, whoever had the spotlight thing, he was bang on. He was, because he could find that he'd point it at some woman who was on some bloke's shoulders, and then she'd end up flashing, and then it'd just be a massive cheer because obviously the spotlight was pointing at her, and then she flashes, and then the entire stadium like went up, and then he'd find another one. But he kept it going for like 20 minutes.
God bless him.
And either everyone was that intimidated, or he really knew what the kind of person he was looking for, because nobody refused. No one was like, no. And there was no like boyfriends going, no, you're not. It was, yeah, everyone a winner. All fella, no killer.
So, John, do you think you saw Guns N' Roses then?
Yeah, because if Axl Rose is there, then you've seen Guns N' Roses. If he isn't there, then you haven't. That's, as far as I'm concerned, Axl Rose was Guns N' Roses. And yeah, I know Slash, but to a lesser degree. But yeah, as long as he's there, because as you said, like, what's his name? May could potentially step in, or Brian May could step in and cover for Slash for a concert, and you wouldn't really know. If you changed Axl's voice and the lead singer's voice, nobody would carry a song. Loads of people would prefer it, I'm sure, but no one would carry a song in the same way as him. So for me, Guns N' Roses was Axl and his voice and delivery. But yeah.
It's a fair point, top quality musicians, that if you're if you're totally into it and you perhaps play the instrument yourself, listen to it loads, you probably know the difference. But your average fan, you're not going to know the difference, are you?
No. Oh, I thought so.
No, I mean, I just went to see Morrissey in Blackpool last week.
Sorry about
That's okay. It's okay. Blackpool is, one of my least favourite places in the world, but it actually wasn't too bad.
Someone I work with has gone tonight. So where is he tonight?
He's in Manchester tonight.
She's gone tonight.
See, I bought tickets, and it was so many years after the release of Strange Ways Here We Come that he did Blackpool, so I wanted to see him on that. But if I'd actually researched it a little bit further, the Manchester gig is 40 years on from the Smiths' first appearance when they were back in their first live appearance ever. So I wish I had got tickets for tonight. The one thing that stopped me getting tickets for Manchester is this is podcast commitment. It's Tuesday night, so I couldn't go on a Tuesday night. That's why I chose not to go. I chose to go to the Blackpool one instead, despite the fact friggin' hate Blackpool.
Well, I told her, I was talking to her about it because she said that she was going to go watch Morrissey, and I'd said that you had seen him a couple of days ago and what have you, and he'd liked him. And I said, he said the other week on his podcast thing that he does that one of his favourite moments or greatest moments was shaking his hand. And he'd said, that happened in Stoke. And she went, right, that'll either be 1991 or 2003 or whatever it was. I can't remember the other one. But she knew instantly what years it would be.
Well, there was a massive gap because in 1991, someone threw a sausage at him and hit him in the face. Oh, so he didn't then return till 2000. I'm trying to think now. So I would have, I was talking about 2016, I think, is when I went to see him in Stoke. Yeah, and I got to shake his hand. So anyway, but that's all by the by. But yeah, she'll have a fantastic night. God bless her. So, where were we? Usually, as 1 or 2, that's where we were. So go on then. Taking you back, Dave. 1993. You know how fantastic your memory is. Tell us about the special guest that appeared then on stage with Guns N' Roses. That was something special, wasn't it?
Were they there both nights?
No, they were only there one night, and it wasn't the night I went, Dave. It was the night you went. No pressure.
Give us a clue.
No, it wasn't Morrissey. No, he was in the Rolling Stones.
Mick Jagger.
No.
Keith, whatever his name is.
No.
The other one that plays the guitar.
The one that looks a little bit about that. It looks like the lad who presents the Bake Off with Matt Lucas. Ronnie Wood.
Ronnie Wood, yeah. Oh, yeah. Don't remember.
No, friggin' no.
How would I remember that? I mean, come on. It's 30 frigging years ago.
Stuff like this should be indelible in your memory. This is your youth. This is your misspent youth.
I don't even know what indelible means.
Okay, but unable to be removed, although that clearly is not the case.
I don't know if it's unable to be removed. Maybe it just never stayed in the first place.
That's true.
But do you not really like the Stones, though? You're not into the Stones particularly, Dave? Because I certainly wasn't at that time, so it wouldn't have meant anything to me really at that time.
I don't know. There's some tracks that probably crop up. I mean, I got on my Spotify, there's like a playlist with, I don't know, 50, 60 tracks. And there's probably 1 or 2 the Stones, but not a lot.
Well, my main memories of that concert were there was a girl in a skin tie outfit, and I gave her my T-shirt to keep, on the hope that I might get somewhere, whether it was unsuccessful. She was way out of my league, and even a Guns N' Roses T-shirt wasn't enough to get there. And then there was
everyone, but she was on your shirt.
Yeah, that's it. Bless her. God bless her. Yeah. And then there was another guy who me and Poddy, who I went with, had called a hurler, who basically got so drunk throughout the entire show, was just puking everywhere. And when it started raining and he was passed out on the floor, someone put a carrier bag over his head to keep his head dry, bless him. Not the best way to go, but a plastic bag over someone's head. And bless him, he survived, but when he stood up, he had been sick inside that bag so many times. It was a very, very grim sight. A very grim sight.
I remember feeling a bit ill, actually, and falling asleep.
With a carrier bag over your head. Gee whiz. So we talked about tonight. Then we dragged it out for an hour. God bless them. They did 2.5 hours worth of music, and we've not really touched on some of their music. So let's just the last couple of minutes. Tell us about your favorite. Just pick your favorite song. Tell us why you like it off that album. Who wants to go first?
Oh, I'm gonna have to look at the track list again.
Andrew, can we rely on you, or do you want to have a little look while
I think I don't know. I like, because I love Terminator. I quite like "You Could Be Mine." and I like the video to it and stuff. But, yeah, I'll go with that one.
You could be. Yeah. Do you know what? Because of Terminator, or just because you like that tune as well?
Both.
Fair play. John Boy?
I like, off the first one, I like Coma. And the second one is Strange for me. But see, both of those are pretty lengthy songs as well. And,
Very lengthy songs.
But Coma, again, you could cut a huge chunk out of that when you've got the woman talking, you know, or what have you, and stuff and all that. Right? You could cut loads of chunks of bits of theirs out and things, can't you? And there's lots of things sampled into that song that could be removed. But yeah, Coma, I really like that one.
Do you know what that song's about?
Well, the lyrics would seem to be, no, not really. It's got to be some kind of relationship hassles or something, I'd have thought, or
drugs.
Oh, is it?
It's about drugs. It's about Slash and Axel's relationship with drugs is Coma, and there's some bad experiences that they'd had over the time when they end up hospitalised.
Right. But then they still had the cheek to sack Stephen Adler for being on drugs.
That's it. Yeah, quite ironic, really. He must have been doing some serious shit to get it. God bless him. But that's what that is allegedly about.
No.
And Coma is their longest song that they've ever recorded. And what was the other one you mentioned? Strange. So Strange was part of a video trilogy, which was Don't Cry, November Rain, and Estranged, which were do you remember this is taking me back now, dude. I won't ask Dave, obviously. They used to know there was a guy who was who used to hang around with a band called Del James, I think his name was, and he was a short story writer, and he wrote a short story called Without You, which is loosely based around those three videos.
Right.
So going back to Don't Cry. So obviously Axel, I've got a black rose tattooed at the top of his arm, same as Axel has. Below that on Axel is the face of a lady. Yeah,
Stephanie Seymour, is it? Oh no, Stephanie
it's
Seymour.
not. No, it's not.
Is that we married though? Seymour.
That was Stephanie Seymour, which ended really quite badly. And I'll see if I've got a name written down here. So Monique Lewis. That's what Don't Cry is written about, and that is the tattoo.
But who's the woman in the video? That's
Stephanie Seymour.
Right?
Yeah, she featured in all of those. And interestingly enough, November Rain is one of the most expensive videos at the time produced. Obviously, they don't spend any money on now because they're all shit. And that was not paid for by Geffen Records. That was paid for by Guns N' Roses. The $850,000 or something stupid that cost was paid for entirely by Guns N' Roses because Geffen Records has said, no, you can't spend that much. It's ridiculous. I think when you watch it, you can see where the money's been spent. It's decent. But yeah, go on, Dave.
I'm probably going to go for Coma as well with John. Actually, if I had to pick one. I mean, I quite like November Rain. I quite like bars. I quite like Meatloaf, so I quite like that kind of stuff. But I do like Coma as well.
I think if I'd have thought at the start, what song would people be naming as their favourite? Coma was not one that I would have picked.
Most of the songs, because they were so popular at the time as well, like with November Rain, I used to really love November Rain. I've heard it that many times. And then even when you're not listening to it, if there is a Guns N' Roses song that's going to be played, it's going to make it on the radio, it's going to be Paradise City or November. It's going to be one of those ones that you've just heard so many times and just got off a few of them, I think.
I get that. For me, I like Dead Horse. Yeah. That for me is one of my favourite tunes. I think it takes me back to my teenage angst when you have a song that starts off with "Sick of This Life, Not That You Care." You know what I mean? It plays right into their audience at the time, which was indeed myself. And then the other one I love Civil War. That's probably my favourite track of theirs. I just think it's phenomenal. I think it's a great tune with a great message. And that is
as well. It's really good, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, and then
what about on "Don't Cry" from the first one? He manages to rhyme some unrhymables in that, doesn't he?
Go on. What
does it say? So it's something we've been there before. and something is changing inside you or something. And then he says, and don't you know?
Don't you know?
And he just turns into this like Yorkshireman, like, because he wants to get before and no to round. So he goes, no, don't you know?
Don't you know?
Happen it me, lad.
Happen it me. Stick to the roads. Beware the moon. And murder it is. Yeah. So yeah, but for me, I think Civil War, and the other one I like is Breakdown.
Yeah. Mentioned.
Absolute GM of a tune, and then Locomotive, and this is what was unusual about this one. I know we're going over the hour mark now, but it actually had other people singing other than Axel. So Fine, Duff sang that one, 14 Years, had Izzy,
yeah.
The Garden.
Yeah,
it's interesting that. Who sang on The Garden?
Slash.
No, Alice Cooper.
Did he?
Yeah, he did. Well, mainly backing vocals, but they recorded it and they listened to it back and they said that Axel's voice on there sounds ridiculously like Alice Cooper, and then they got him to come and do backing vocals on there.
But then Slash went and played with Alice Cooper, I think, on the Hey Stupid album or something as well, didn't he?
That's right. And then obviously
he had tracks.
You had Shannon Hoon as well on Don't Cry from Blind Melon, and he features in the video as well. So brings us to the end of this hour where we talked about Use Your Illusion. We said we'd decide which one's best. Has anybody changed their mind, or they're sticking to their guns?
Yeah, I'm sticking.
I'm sticking.
There you go. So everything was roses, and we held on to the guns. Well, okay, I guess Gaz, who's the one who hasn't bothered to turn up tonight, God bless him, gets the deciding vote then. So we've got 2 for Use Your Illusion 1, 2 for Use Your Illusion 2. Do you know which one Gaz prefers?
Well, as he hasn't turned up, whatever he prefers, we should go for the opposite to the casting vote, shouldn't we?
That works for me, yeah, because he prefers Use Your Illusion 2. So on that bombshell, Use Your Illusion 1 voted the most popular album of the 2. So, folks, I forget who we've got with us next week. Oh, no, I don't. We've got another Lego episode next week. We've got the guys from Brick Borrow who was recommended by Andy. So it's a new concept of Lego. So instead of buying a Lego set, which I can tell you from my own personal experience is quite expensive, they do a thing where you pay a monthly subscription, you get to borrow it.
Well, how did we used to thought they must have been cheap? Because how did you when you were a kid, you used to have boxes and boxes, didn't you, of Lego?
Oh, yeah.
And they were like, tens of thousands of pieces.
I know.
And now if you spent that and bought that now.
There's only 4 different sizes though, weren't there?
Yeah, that's true.
Red or yellow with the odd green. And
no.
And that was it.
Oh no, I had all the see-through ones and everything, and blue and everything. Yeah, oh no. I had mainly yellow because I remember having a castle one Christmas. So that was a massive one, and they were all yellow.
But that castle, I know we're going to get off the topic here a little bit. But do you remember with that castle? The old ear stopped up on Christmas Eve. Sorry, guys, Santa is real. If my kids listen to this. But the old ear stopped up on Christmas Eve and built that.
I know, yeah.
I think she really missed the point of what that gift was all about.
Take it apart. Happy Christmas.
Yeah, there you go, son. Yeah, have this. Oh, thanks. So, who wants to say their goodbyes first? Go on, Dave. You're not often with us. Give us a goodbye. And actually, just quickly, thanks for the beer. And I'll tell you what, the first one I actually had was the Ardwin. I thought that one was the best. The Tet the Moor is actually really, really decent as well, the Trips. But I enjoyed that darker beer. I really enjoyed that. And this just finishes the night off nicely for me, the cherry one.
The 3 winners then. That's all right, isn't it?
Absolute bonus.
No, it's been good. I can't remember much about what we were talking about, but it's been good. Thanks.
No worries, though. And just for the record, Dave, yes, they were both released at the same time.
I know. That's yet. Same day.
John Boy?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been nice to reminisce. As I said, it gave me a good excuse to listen to him again, actually. As I haven't listened to him in years. So, yeah, I've listened to him now. I'll listen to him again in another 30 years when I'm 76. See what I think of him then.
Good luck with that.
Terrifying thought that is. Andy?
Yeah, it's been good. It's always good to squeeze Morrissey in as well.
Absolutely. Thank you for that, Andrew. And yeah, and totally for me, when I came up with this idea, it was literally with Gaz in mind, actually, unfortunately, who isn't here tonight. But it did give me a great excuse, like you say, to go and listen to 2 fantastic albums And yeah, I was a little bit surprised by how much they dated some of those songs, because a lot of the music I listen to is actually from that time frame and earlier. And for me, it hasn't dated. A lot of this really, really had. And I guess if you want to know a little bit about where Axl's come from, where he's going, that there is a series now on Nick Jr., Scooby-Doo and Friends, and Axl Rose is a guest appearance on that where he plays himself. And I'll leave you with that thought, because let's face it, Axl does what Axl wants to do. Thank you for listening, and take care.